Hello everyone, this is Steve Huff at SteveHuffPhoto.com. Here today with two cameras, the Fuji X-E1 with a 35 1.4 Fuji lens, the Sony RX1 with its built-in Zeiss 35 f2, also have the viewfinder. Of course the X-E1 has it built in. Here we are. A lot of people have asked me to compare these for focus speed and image quality. This is the RX1. I wanted to show you that I'm in my office. The lights are out. The only light is coming from my computer screen, which is to my right. But up ahead where I'm focusing, I'm going to be focusing on this with the RX1 to see how fast it will focus. The lens is set at f2, and here we go. All right, it locked on. We're going to move over to the watch. It locked on. We're going to move to the corkboard on the wall. Locked on. Again, the camera. Locked on. Behind it. Locked on. The watch. Locked on. Locked on. So it locks on. We're in the corner of the wall. Locked on. It locks on very quick, as you can see. Let's try out into my living room. Locked on. Okay, so now we're going to try the same thing with the X-E1. So here's the X-E1. We're going to try the same thing. It's much speedier now with the new firmware. There we go. Locked in. Locked in. Locked in. Locked in. We'll try on the wall, just like we did with the Sony. Locked in. And the living room. So to me, they're about the same in AF speed in lower light right now. We'll go back to the camera. Notice it's locking on. If I did this test when this lens first came out, which I did with the X Pro 1, then you would have seen how slow it was and unable to lock on. Now the Fuji locks on, no problem. See that? Boom. So it's much better than it used to be, and now it is on par with the RX1 for focusing speed. I'm going to do one more with the RX1 so you can see again for reference. Boom, watch, boom, boom, corner of the room, boom, calendar, boom, living room. Let me get over here. Where's the, there we go. Boom. So they're both about the same speed-wise. They both lock on and achieve AF in low light. As you can see, they're about the same size. The only difference here is you can see the bottom. The Sony is actually a little thinner when it doesn't have the case on it. The case adds a little bit of size to the Sony here, though the case is a form-fitting Gera's case. But as you can see, a lot of people thought that either the Sony was smaller or the Fuji was bigger, when in reality, they're about the same size, as you can see. There's not much difference between them size-wise. Image quality-wise, how about that? Well, I've been shooting them just for test snapshots here and there over the past couple days, and here's what I found. I prefer the low light performance of the Sony because you get a richer, deeper file, and it is more sharp when you're at higher ISOs. You get nice, crisp, like-alike almost rendering at high ISOs because the detail remains, even with noise reduction off, which I always have turned off. The Fuji has also got amazing high ISO capability, but it seems to get a little flat as the ISO goes up in comparison to the Sony. Now, we all don't shoot at high ISO. Most of us shoot at base ISO, so that's really what matters. So which camera did I prefer shooting? After the latest firmware updates for the lens on the Fuji and the body of the X-E1, the AF speed is about the same as the RX1. There's another part of this video after this where I will show you the low light AF speed, and they are about exactly the same in low light, and in good light they're about the same as well. And I have no problems whatsoever with the RX1 AF. It has never failed me. In a few thousand shots I've had two missed focused, and that was in a very low light pub, but I ended up getting the shot anyway. I shot some in Vegas in a restaurant, which was very dim the other night at ISO 12,800, 25,600 in black and white. Nailed the focus, no problem. They came out really cool looking. So the RX1 is a monster in low light. This will beat this in low light if you're just doing kind of ambient light shots. Say you're in a pub or a restaurant or a dark club or something. You can set this guy to crazy high ISO, even 25,000, and you turn it into black and white mode, and you're going to get some really cool looking shots. This one falls flat when you try to do that. Outside in good light, though, they're actually not that far off. You do get a richer file with the Sony. It's full frame. It has one of the best sensors on the market right now. It's comparable to the D800 and D4 sensor. DxO rated it as the 4th best sensor of all time in a 35mm, I believe. The X-E1 also does well, but I found the X-E1 was overexposing for me quite often outside in the daytime. The RX1, the Sony, seems really spot on with its metering. I love the metering. Of course, I prefer the viewfinder inside the body like the X-E1, which Sony did not do with the RX1. But either way, the viewfinder, the EVF on this is greatly improved from the last one, the one they came out with for the 5. And I have to say, it's quite amazing. I mean, it's the best EVF that I have used to date right here. Sony's always on top of their game with technology, and I have to tell you that the EVF, while expensive, I love it. I love shooting with the EVF. I hate holding out the camera body. So for me, the EVF was a must. And the fact that it pulls up so you can look down into it, that's really cool too when you shoot. That's something that you can't do. It's almost like having a swivel EVF or swivel LCD, but you have it in the EVF. Both of these cameras, the build is better on the Sony. When you hold the Sony, it feels like a mini Leica. It's very solid, feels like it's sculpted of metal. When you pick up the Fuji, it feels a little more hollow, not as solid, but that's how all the Fujis feel. The dial on the Sony feels nice and solid and weighted. This one feels a little more plasticky and cheap, but it gets the job done. The dials on the Sony, the metal dial here, it's all nice and smooth and well done. This is buttons, plastic buttons. So the build on the Sony is indeed better. There's the flash, there's the flash. But that's just build. Performance-wise, AF speed is about the same on both of these. The Fuji has come a long way since the X Pro 1 early days, and it focuses much faster now with the 35-1.4 at least, and the new firmware. That's always the big thing with the Fujis. The Fujis are always on top of the firmware. They release firmware and they upgrade constantly. So the picture quality overall, at the end of the day, my preference was for the RX1. The X-E1 has got that Fuji gorgeous look. It's also good, but there's something about the full frame sensor that's just so nice and creamy. And the files, I can't really explain it unless you shot an RX1 and started processing the raw files. It's hard to explain it to somebody who has not experienced it. The files are very rich and deep and full of dynamic range, and you can tweak them and do whatever you want, and they're just very hardy. The X-E1 files, sometimes a lot of files I got out of it were flat and dull, and other times they looked spectacular. So Fuji is good in just about any light. It can make something special out of any light. And I have gotten a lot of Leica-looking files out of this guy. So it's hit or miss for me, but mostly in good light, the Fuji rocks. I mean, the colors are amazing. So it's all personal preference. And as far as your budget allows, to me, the X-E1, I would take it in a heartbeat over the X Pro 1. So there's that. That's just my personal preference. Then again, I'd probably take the X100 over the X-E1 for its simplicity and 35mm lens. And to me, the X100 just seemed to have something about it that was special. It could just be that I'm being nostalgic, even though it's not that old, but the X100S appears to have improvements over the X-E1 itself. But there you go, side by side, X-E1, RX1, both fantastic cameras. This was my pick for camera of the year 2012. This is a very good camera, but I have to be honest, I prefer the RX1, and not just because it costs more money, because the image quality is better. Take a look at that Tumblr RX1 files page, and you'll see some amazing RX1 photos that are just deep and rich, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The X-E1 has a totally different color signature, totally different look. Some will prefer the X-E1, some the RX1. But either way, no matter what you choose, if you choose one of these two, you're getting an amazing, fantastic camera. So there you go. That's about all I can tell you about it. This is just all my opinions, as always. You know, if you agree with what I say most of the time, then you'll understand. If you disagree with me, then you probably would say, oh, I prefer the X-E1. But anyway, look over to stevehufpphoto.com for the full comparison, and hope to see you there. Thank you. Bye.